Okay, welcome to another video, and in today's video we will be exploring, or we will be completing the normalization and also basic CRUD operation. Right, in the last video we looked at create, insert, but majorly focused on author. Right, we looked at the series of author, how to add a new column, delete an existing column, to do all of those things. All right, let's just fast forward this, right, so that we'll just get into what we want to do. By the way, as usual, to open pgAdmin, you hit Windows button on your keyboard and you type pgAdmin. If you're on Windows, you hit Windows button, you search for pgAdmin. If you're on Mac, use your Finder, search for pgAdmin, and then you open it. So just quickly expand this. All right, so there we go. I'll just go ahead and put in the password. Okay, and I'll save. Hit OK. Oops, cross check that again. All right, went through the intro to Postgres. So we were working on this particular database the last time. So if yours is not automatically opened this way, that means you don't have this tab kept. All you have to do is, as usual, let me close this so that we don't save. So we're on the same page. You probably see this, and we're still working with the same database, which is intro to SQL. You click on that particular database. See, mine is highlighted in blue. You go to your query tool or use your shortcut. Okay, and then once you open it, it gives you this blank work area where you can write your query. Now, if you have your previous query saved where we did the author and all, you can just click on open file, and then it returns or it brings back all your query. You go to query history and also check for that particular one to get it from there. You can see some of the author we used, right? So some of the queries we wrote the last time are still there. Of course, I will not be continuing with that to keep this clean for you. If you still have yours, all you have to do is go to the next line. So let's say select something. So all your existing queries, so at the top, and then your new queries below. So that means whatever I want to write today, you can now write it down here, okay, regardless of the number of lines you have before. However, before we do anything, let's remember or verify the tables we have. Click on the drop down, scroll down all the way to schemas, okay, the same database, schemas, all the way down to tables to see the two tables. Okay, we have DBs and DB type. All right, by the way, DB is just database, and DB type is just database type, like whether it's relational or non-relational. So we can write a select all to see what we have in both. Select all, that's the asterisk, it's a white card, so that's what I pronounce, or I say, yeah, that's what I pronounce as all. So don't accidentally write select all, or maybe you do select asterisk all, or sometimes when I say it, I say select all, which is asterisk. So don't end up writing select all asterisk from. So all in this case is the what? Asterisk. Okay. So I'm saying select all from DBs, and then select all from DB type. Yeah, I've seen it as well, the error. So I'll take that out. Okay, so let's see what we have in there quickly. Good, this is what we have. Okay, now for DB type, run it. this is what we have. Nice. Now quickly, just to make emphasis on the all, the asterisk here, or the all, is with respect to the columns. Automatically, pay attention, automatically, unless filtered, our select query will always return all the rows of our data, rows or record of the data we have. Take note of that. Automatically, except filtered. So if we don't filter it, then we will get all the records back. But when we filter, that is when we will not get all the records back. Of course, we'll still look at filtering in more details, filtering data in more details. So pay attention, if you don't filter, you get all the rows back. So let me do this. If I run this to F5, I get 7 rows because I have 7 records. Okay. Then what does the all now mean? Is that not why we're using all? No. This all has to do with the columns you select. Currently in DBs, we have 3 columns. Is that correct? And let me adjust this way. So we have 3 columns. So what if we just want to select the database and the type? We don't want to see the ID. How do we do that? In that case, so we can say select all columns, COLS columns, short form, or I'll say select specific column or columns. English made that easy. So it can be singular or plural. So how to do that is we'll list them out. So let me just put this forward. Select DB, comma, type DB. Oh, type ID. Okay. So we're selecting the DB and the type ID from the DBS, which is databases. So this time we're not selecting all. So all has to do with what? The columns. So we're selecting just the DB and the type ID. And if I run this, you can see that we no longer have the ID column. That's the database ID column itself. But we still have the exact number of records, the same number of records, which is 7. So we have 7 records. We have 7 records. If we run this selector, if we run it, we have 7 rows or records, 7, just that we have this ID column included. When we run this, we get 7 as well, but without the ID column. So take note of that. That's something important to know. By the way, I'm not coming here because I'm just using the shortcut directly to execute. I bring my cursor in there, Alt F5, and I execute. Okay. So this is the difference between selecting all columns and specific columns. All right. So we have seen how to insert, right? We've seen how to insert, and you might be thinking, is that how we continue it? But let's look at something very important. What we want to look at is alter. Of course, we took time to explore all of this in the last video, but if you remember that towards the end of the video, I said, since we're considering normalization, we might as well, so let me just run this again, we might as well take out this column so that this DB is specific to just the ID and the kind of database. Then we can now have another table that pulls the particular ID of a database and the type ID. Okay, so think of it this way. We want to create another table where we'll say, okay, this particular company uses this particular database, and they use this particular and the type of database is relational or non-relational. Okay, good. So that's what we want to do. So for us to be able to do that, that means we have to drop this column. We have to take out this column from this particular table. Currently, our DBs table has the ID, the database name, and the type ID. But we don't want this type ID in this place. Following the rule of what? One normal form. So say alter table DBs, then we'll drop. So what do we want to drop? Type ID. Type ID. Then we'll run that. It says return successfully. We'll run select all again. Do not forget, if you run any query that does not have select, you only get a success message or an error message on the message tab. But immediately we run anyone that has select, it automatically jumps to the data output tab and we see a data output result. Okay, so I'll run this again and you can see this is what I have. Now that other table, the other column is gone. This is what we have now. So let's create another table. Create table. Then we can call these, we'll just call it company stack. Now, in a more advanced way, what we probably want to do is create another table for just companies, okay, and give them an ID. Then in a final table that we can call company stack, then we now have the company ID, the DB ID, and the type ID, right? So have it connected, but with grasping the basics and key understanding of how to write the queries. Okay, when we now get into the more technical parts of practical application, then we can start, making notes to or taking all of that into consideration. However, make sure you're listening to every word, because I'm not just writing the queries on the screen for you to copy and paste or to type along with me. I'm writing them so you can follow along. You listen to every word. I explain why we do that. I explain, okay, if we bring in this, why we are doing it. If we decide to go this way, why? And the whys are very important. It gives you a foundational understanding of what is going on. That's how it makes you start to think like a senior person, or like an entry level should I say data analyst or database developer or database administrator or manager. Okay, so keep that in mind. All right, so we'll create a company stack table. Company stack, company stack. Now it's possible that there's some things I explain you don't get immediately. All you have to do is take a pause, think about it, play it again slowly, and have a grasp of it, because it's very important that you understand what is going on. Okay, so you don't just write the query like, okay, I don't know. So this is not just you can call it let's say a public mentorship, something like that. Because I'm not just teaching you how to write the queries, you just know how to write them. I'm teaching you why you should write it this way and how to use them practically. Okay, and it's very important so that you can go out there and make the impact. You can use it to solve the actual problems you need to solve, not just that you know the syntaxes in your head and you cannot solve a problem with it. Okay, so create a table. Just say company, stack to this company. I'll say this is a variable character of, let's say, 30. Variable character of 30. Then the next one is the DB ID, and this will be, so I think it's an integer, right? Our DB ID is an integer, so it's an integer. And of course, we'll be making it a foreign key. We can either write it just after it, or we can be done with all our columns and then do it after. Okay, then we have the type ID as well. Now, just to make sure Let's quickly check our table. DB type, what did we have it as? Okay, it's ID. So for us, it will be type ID. So type ID is also, type ID is character in this case. Character of 5. Okay, so this is what we have. Now the next thing for us to do is to add foreign keys. Okay, and for us to do that, I'll be showing you two powerful ways of doing it, or two major ways of doing it. One is shorter, the other is a bit long. So I'll copy and paste this code again, this query, so that you can see the difference. So you pick what works for you. So we can do it inline. When we do it inline, since this will be a foreign key, we can just say references directly. So where or what does it reference? Where can we find it? It references the DBs, then the ID on the DB table. Inline. So this is inline method. Inline. The same thing. Of course, you can think about it already. We copy this and paste here. References. This will be DB type. And is the ID. Okay. So DB type and is the ID. We'll probably get an error. And I'll tell you what the error we're getting means. And now I would like to make you see it first before you think about it. So you think about the error, then you tell me what the error could likely be. Just leave it in the comment section below. Now, okay, this is what will likely be the error, and this is what will probably cause it. But let me show you the two ways of writing. So this is one way, inline directly. The other way is declaring it just after. You see, there is a comma here now. We have added a comma, so we have to type foreign key. Of course, you can add a constraint name, do not forget that. So type in the foreign key, then into bracket we say db id, db underscore id, then we'll add references. Okay, so this is how we do it. So for the other one, we'll copy as well. Then we say this is of type ID. And then we can say it's from this guy. Alright. So whichever works for you is just to show you the difference between the two. Okay, so you can decide anyone you want to use. Okay. Of course, I'll go with the inline. Okay. So I'll take this out completely. Again, just to show you, this is how you write it in two ways. Let me expand this. So the first method, inline, and the other one is, well, not outline, and you write on another line this way, fully. So you pick what works for you, and then you can go with that. Alright. So let me take out the one below. We'll just keep it inline. It's easier that way. And now let me show you what I said could cause the error. Run. So this is the first one. We have ID and we have DB. Pay attention to what we have right here. Okay, this is our DB table. Now I'll run the second one. You see what we have here? ID and type. Pay attention to what we have up here as well. Okay. Now let's go ahead to run our query. I'll just remove this comment. It's just to tell you that it's inline, and do not forget the last column does not take a comma. Okay, very important. So run that. Okay, now it says error. There is no unique constraint match given keys given the. Okay, let me read that slowly. Error. there is no unique constraint matching given keys for the reference table DB type. So it's telling us that this DB type, I'm trying to make it a foreign key, but it doesn't have a primary key. There must be a primary key first. And what is a primary key? Not a unique identifier on an entity table. Primary key is a unique identifier on an entity table. So a primary key is not null and it is unique. So it cannot be empty and it has to be unique. That means two people cannot have the same ID. Now, on this table, for example, customer ID on customer table is a primary key. Student ID on student table is a primary key. But it becomes a foreign key when it appears on another table. The same way, the country where you're born, you are a citizen, right? A citizen, you belong to that place. But when you are outside that country, they call you a foreigner, right? It's as simple as that. So a primary key on its own table, or a unique identifier on its own table, right, as a primary key. But if the same ID appears on another table, it becomes a foreign key. So for example, customer ID on customer table is a primary key, but customer ID on sales table is a foreign key. Okay, so that means there must be a primary key before there can be a foreign key. And that's what this guy is telling us. He says there's no primary key, and that's why I executed both queries first. Let me show you this. The first one has what? Primary key. We added this using what? The constraint. We added this using what? All timing in the previous video. But for the DB type, there is no primary key on the ID. Okay, so that is what we have to do now. So you can pause the video for a minute and make sure you give it a try. See if you remember how to add the primary key constraint. Okay, so pause the video now and do it. All right, if you want to see me do it, then let's do it together. So right here we say alter table, then which table is that? DB type. Okay, DB type. Then we say add. So it can be column, it can be constraint. Okay, whatever it is, you can either add it or not, or you can either add it or not. Okay, SQL pgAdmin understands, depending on what you had, it will be able to tell if it's a constraint or it is a column you're trying to add. So say FK, which is foreign key. Oh, primary key, we want to add a primary key, so say pk id db type id. Okay, so this is what we're giving it. It's good to have a consistency in how we do it, okay, so that we can know what we have. And we named one the last time. Okay, we named one the last time. So this is how we named it. Okay, so you can see that we can check the name we have given it. So it's dbid primary key. So let's follow that consistency. So db type id, and then we'll say pk. All right, it could be long, no doubt, but it's good that is descriptive. Okay, if it's descriptive, that is better. So db type id primary key. So let's follow that consistency. All right, so that's the name, and then we want to put it as primary key. Okay, primary key, and it will be the column name, which is id. It's probably named id, right? Okay, this is it right here. So I like to do it this way so that it can, you know, act like a function tied to this. So we say alter table db type add. This is the name. I will say it's a primary key. That means I'm making this column a primary key. So let's run that. Okay. Oh, okay. That's what I missed. And that's because we are adding a name. If I remove the name, then this will run, okay? But since I'm adding a name, I must say constraints, okay? So that's the only issue. I run it and it's successful. Now if I run this again, all right, you can see it now as primary key. Now if we go back, let me adjust this table. Okay, now if we go back to run this guy, this create, it should now run successfully. All right, table is now created. And if we do select all from company stack, select all from company stack. Now you know how, or you know what the all means, right? It refers to the column. Okay, so you can see we have company, we have DB ID, we have type ID. All right, so that's good. That's good. Now we can now insert some records into that particular table to finally achieve what we want to do. Okay, so let's do that. Insert into company stack values. Okay, values. Then we can do this because we'll have quite a number of them, and the last one will always be the last one will always take a semicolon like this. So let's add some company. Since we're adding just the name directly, all right, the first company, let's say, oops, that should be single quotes, and let's say Stack Overflow, then the DB ID. So you see, we have to do a lot of checking. The DB ID, Stack Overflow uses SQL Server, so that means we won't have much record, so we don't keep going back and forth. Or we can just list some major ones. We can just list some major ones. So SQL Server 4, Postgres 1, and then let's pick Cassandra 8. So 1, 4, 8. All right, that's what we want to use. So ID of 4, right? The BID is 4, and that's a relational database. So that is RL01. All right. So next one we want to use is let's say Twitch or Apple. Now something you should know is that some of this company uses more than one database. Okay, Apple uses Postgres. Apple also uses Cassandra, by the way. Apple, then put 1, and then also there's a relational database. Again, this time we can say we will use SQLite. Netflix, let's just put Netflix, or Uber. Okay, Netflix or Uber. So Netflix uses Cassandra. Cassandra is 8, if I'm not wrong, and that is what? Non-relational 02. Okay. All right. So this is what we have, and let's run this. The last one, take the semicolon. Execute. It says 3 successful, inserted. Now if we check company stack now, you can see now we have the Stack Overflow 4. Of course, it's not showing us the database name directly, but when we perform a join, right, we can now start to see the database, the particular database directly. Okay, so we have Apple, we have Netflix. So these are just the ones we want to work with. Now, as a form of exercise, I'll be attaching a file in the description below. I will show you more the companies and the database they use, right? So you will insert all those records yourself. Now we have been able to achieve the normalization that we want, and this is not bad. This is really good. And see, you're not learning like anyone who's just learning syntaxes, who's learning writing queries. You're learning the application, right? And that is what makes you stand out. That is the edge you have out there. So quick one before we wrap this up. You'll probably be thinking, what if we have 1,000 records? Are we going to add it this way, one after the other? No, we're not gonna do that. And in the next video, we will be looking at how to load in data into our database, right? So let's say you have an expected data, we see how to load it back into your database. So till then, keep practicing. Practice makes you better. And do not forget the exercise. Check the link in the description below. You see the link to download the file, and make sure you have the data in your database. All right, see you